Hey everybody, it's Nathan Cool with nathancoolphoto.com, and in this tutorial I want to show you how to fix those artifacts that you may get from doing a flash ambient blend. One of the more common problems that you'll see is if you flashed the ceiling a little too hard, perhaps with your flash pointed a little too forward, you'll see some harsh shadows on the ceiling turn orange when you apply that luminosity ambient layer on top of it. And there's an easy fix for that. Also, you can see sometimes some harsh reflections over in the wood on kitchen cabinets and whatnot, and those will turn gray when you use an ambient layer on that. That's because we went to extremes. So if you've got something that's almost completely blown out or something that's completely dark in the shadows, basically on the clipping ends of the histogram, those then can cause problems with luminosity because there really is no light or there's too much light. So it throws things off. Not to worry, it's an easy fix either way, and you'll have two more tricks in your bag here to go ahead and use if you need to repair that. I'm going to show you two different examples, two different ways to fix it. You ready? Let's get started. So first we'll show the easy one. This is a shot here. This is the ambient. Don't worry about it being blown out. One of the things you read about in my ebook is I don't really care so much about it being too high. I definitely want to get a good base ambient. It is for this room here, and I can use a little bit ambient where I need to. My flash shot, I was able to get enough power so where I didn't need a window pull. It's a little bit dark, but I'm going to fill that in with ambient. But the big problem here is this right here. We've got this harsh reflection going on here. That is not the case in the ambient shot. So we need to be able to fix that. So really quickly, after doing some of the pre-processing, which by the way, it's the same settings that I show in the ebook and on other tutorials. Just gonna go ahead, I already did those. So right click, then I'm gonna edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So just cutting to the chase here on what we would do, show you the exact problem. So as this loads, I'm going to zoom in then. I'm going to show you a little bit of a close-up of the problem. So as I turn then the ambient layer to luminosity mode, which typical flash ambient blend, nothing really different here so far, you can see where the problems start showing up. So over here, you can see that turned gray on the wood. That's not the color of the wood. Even did it a little bit down in here as well. Well, since this is wood, I'm not too worried about the colors. Now remember, if I didn't have that in luminosity mode, the colors would be a really rich color as compared to what the flash shot shows. So we couldn't just blend this whole layer in, but we can blend it for that particular portion. So what we can do is we make a copy of the layer, and then one layer, the top one, is our typical luminosity mode. Not a problem. Apply a layer mask where we hide it, just like we normally do. And then this other layer, this is our repair layer. It's in normal mode. I'll also go and hide all on a layer mask. Now let's go ahead and do our typical painting that we do on the flash ambient blend. Just add a little bit in here to the kitchen to go ahead and bring that out. That looks good. And now for the main room where we're going to start seeing some of the problem. Let's go ahead and just do that, and then we'll repair after we're done, so not a big problem. So just finish this off like we normally would. That's looking good. Get this couch real nice, make it look natural, and then something in here. Yeah, there we go. A little bit of an outline here for that ceiling. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's say that's good enough. But once again, we've got this problem with these harsh shadows. Well, we have this repair layer, and I'm not really worried about color matching, something I'm going to do in the next example. So all that I'm going to do is go back to that repair layer mask, and I'm going to take a brush, and once again, just like we normally do, a flow of about 10%, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint that in. I could even go over here and paint some of that in here where that's fixed. Now, I'm not worried about the color of the wood matching. It's going to be close enough no matter what, especially when shadows and light hit it from different angles. Much different than when you're trying to work with paint and all of a sudden you'd have a different color. So that's step number one on how we would go ahead and fix that. So I'm not going to go through the whole detail of adding the bump. You've seen me do that on other videos, and obviously the ebook shows that in much more detail as well. Let's go back to our other example where we have the shadows. So this is the one that's the bane of almost everybody's existence using flash ambient blend. Now in this case, I was running and gunning. I didn't have my light positioned properly, so it was pointed a little too forward, and you can see what happened. I got a nasty shadow from the fan. So I'm going to take an ambient shot. I'm going to go ahead and take this, and you know what, I'm going to pull in a window pull also. So let's just do all three. So I'm going to take all three of those. Already did the pre-processing, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. So those will come up, and it's going to be a little trickier on this one because we don't want to worry about the paint matching. You're going to see that a lot in this example. So there's a very harsh difference between the colors, between an ambient layer and what it really was by using the flash. Remember that one of the reasons of using a flash is that you actually get true colors. So you can see the difference here between flash. If we go in here and look at these colors, you can see how it's very warm, yellowish. But the true color of the room when I flash, you can see has a grayish type of green. And that's going to be important if we want to maintain that. So let's go ahead and do like we normally would. I'm going to go ahead and take that and say, let's turn it into luminosity. And there you can see the problem. See those nasty yellow orange shadows? Well, we can fix that easy enough. You can see though the color is being maintained on the rest of it compared to if this was just a ambient shot, which is way too warm. So all that we have to do, I'm going to take that ambient layer, it's right now in luminosity mode, I'm going to duplicate it, Control J. I'm going to go to the one underneath of it now and change that back to normal, and I'm going to hide it, the whole thing. And the same thing with typically what we do with luminosity mode up here. I'm going to go layer mask hide. Now let's just go out here and let's do our typical painting. So we're going to go ahead and put in 10% flow brush, and we're going to paint in where we want our luminosity. So this is good and it's fine. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you get the idea of what we're trying to do here. You've seen me do this a bunch of other times before. And you get a nice, more natural looking shot by adding in the ambient luminosity, not the ambient color. Okay, so let's say that's good enough. Now what we need to do is fix these nasty shadows up here. So this particular layer then that we were working with, we need to go ahead and color match that layer. So what we need to do is to get this guy to match the color that was underneath of it. So what we do is we go Image up here in the menu, then we go to Adjustments, and then you go down to Match Color. Now there's a couple things you can do here. One, you could try to neutralize it by just clicking this button, but that doesn't really do the job. A lot of times that will work. You've seen me do this on Colorcast on that other video. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the source from where I want it to match. And the source in this case is this file, which is the one that's open. It's 72.117. I'm going to use the layer, which is our flash layer, which is 72.14. So I'm going to select that layer. And then we can take a look, and yeah, it kind of started matching a little bit. Maybe if I add some neutralize to it, now we're getting closer. And I'm going to drop the color intensity a little bit. So playing with these sliders, with the neutralize and everything, we start getting then a better view of a color match. So comparing this color to our flash, we're really close. We've got something that really looks close. So now I can use that as my repair layer. So let me turn my luminosity back on, go back up here, and now I can start painting that repair layer in that was color matched. So I just go ahead and paint, and those shadows start going away. And I'm only painting where those shadows were coming in. So there, that looks good. Shadows are basically gone. Now, this shadow on the wall, that's natural. I'm not worried about that. What I'm interested in were those harsh ceiling fan shadows, these ones that showed up here. So by having this ambient layer that was then color matched to my flash, I was able to repair it. Could I do that to the entire layer and just paint it in instead of luminosity? Very unlikely that that would actually work. So because you would have just so much matching going on. But anyways, that got us our match. Now last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this in, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this into our window pull by doing the darken mode, layer mask hide, take a brush at 100%, and then I'm just going to go ahead and paint this guy in. So we've got a nice window pull layer going on with some nice sky showing up out there. And of course, that's one of the last things that I usually do with one of these. If I needed to do a window pull, like I did in the last example, didn't really need it. Didn't really need to show it on this video, but just threw it in there as an example anyways. And of course, the last step, layer flatten, Control S to save it, goes back then into Lightroom. And of course then from here I can add my other stuff. Of course, just to finish out the workflow, might as well. I'll go ahead and give it a bit of a light bump. So that was good. Fixed some of the other verticals that were going on. Got a little bit of distortion going on here too. I was shooting this really wide. It's a very small kitchen. So I might want to just fix some of that distortion right there. Probably about, yeah, about a -5 would do it. So that looks pretty good. And also when I have color match problems like this, I tend to really up the whites a little bit, which then tends to overpower it, brings some of the highlights in. So it kind of corrects that. A little bit of orange is still there. I'm not worried about that. Some of that's coming off of from that light. I can reduce though the blacks, which will then get rid of too much cast that can be coming in from the color, and also turn down some of the contrast. So that in itself really doesn't look that bad. I'm not worried about it. The biggest thing though is I got rid of those harsh ceiling fan shadows that would have been turned orange if I did this as a flash ambient blend. Instead, now we've got this. So that's it in a nutshell. Basically, if you have wood, I wouldn't really worry about doing a color match. Just take that ambient layer, paint a little bit of it in. You don't want to paint in the whole ambient layer because the colors won't be correct necessarily for everything else. You're going to have all these ambient artifacts that are going to then be in the paint and on these various colors in the furniture. The wood, it's not really much to worry about, so I don't usually do a color match. If I see there's a problem, there's only been a rare couple cases where, for instance, in cherry wood, sometimes you'll see that we've got a nice rich red cherry color, but then it's like it's got a little bit of orangish to it, you know, it's from the ambient artifacts. But the important one, and the one that's more common, is when you see those ceiling fan shadows, and that's the trickier case. And basically what you want to do is you want to color match an ambient layer, you want it color matched to the flash layer. And of course you just go image, adjust, match color, and you'll be able to then start playing around with maybe a little bit of the neutralize. You've got then the color intensity. You can also match it though, and that's what's most important, is being able to match it to a source layer and be able to then use that as the reference for all the rest of the color matching that Photoshop has to do in its algorithms. Do that, use them as repair layers, simple and done. A couple little tricks. I know it might have been new to you. It's something that might be a little confusing, but once you get used to it, you can just whip those guys right out as fast as you need to. So it's another quick process to your workflow once you get used to it. I hope this was useful for you and that you can also use some of these techniques in your photography as well. If you did like this video, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. It won't cost you anything, and as soon as one of these videos is posted, you'll be the first to know. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, take care, be safe, and get out there and shoot something.